Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with episode 2076 of the Cabral Concept. So good to have you here today. Our topic of the day is going to be 7 foods that lower testosterone. And when you're listening to the show, I want you to think about this, that there are certain types of people that actually want to reduce their testosterone levels, while others may want to increase testosterone. And so for those people, they will want to absolutely avoid these foods. And while others that want to reduce their testosterone levels, they will want to specifically add these foods in. So this show actually serves 2 different types of people. We'll get into it a little bit because each one of these foods, I'm going to give you some of the research behind it. So this was kind of a fun show for me to start to put together. And the reason is that, well, we work with many women with PCOS or maybe higher levels of testosterone, and they want to try to reduce that naturally. Now, I will tell you that if you're a woman with higher levels of testosterone and you want to reduce your testosterone naturally, you can't just look at testosterone reducing foods. You want to look at what are the underlying culprits and causes of that. And that's blood sugar dysregularity, higher levels of stress and cortisol hormone levels as well. Stress, toxicity, viral load, and as I said before, blood sugar dysregularity. Really important to look at that. And then for men or women looking to increase their testosterone levels, really important that you make sure that you are focused on getting enough vitamin C, getting enough zinc, making sure that you have enough protein, calories in the diet, that you're not suppressing your actual hormones. Really, like I said, important to look at all of those specific characteristics and features. We've spoken about those on other shows, so I won't get too deep today. I'll try to link to some of the other previous testosterone boosting shows. So if you want to head on over to stevencabral.com/2076 today, I will link those up. All right. So first things first, a great article I was reading over, doing some research. I love looking at the science behind not just like a cute title, right? But actually the science behind, do certain foods naturally lower hormones? And we know that they do, because if you're looking at my previous show on seed cycling, which if you've never heard about seed cycling before, so many women are using it, have really written in about that show. So it's great to hear that we're helping a lot of women with their menstrual cycles and helping them become more regular with even something like seed cycling. So we'll link that up today at 2076 as well, stevencabral.com/2076. But there's a great article that I want to chat about right now. This is by Rachel Link. So a little shout out to Rachel Link. I don't know Rachel, but she wrote a really nice article. So I always want to give her a little bit of a shout out or give anyone a shout out for the good work that they're doing. She has her master's science and registered dietitian. So put together a pretty good list. One of them I'm not going to add because it's very specific to men with prostate cancer. So I don't think that that's going to be general population of what we're speaking with. But there are 7 great foods that I want to share with you now in the research as well. So let's dive right into it. The first you might have guessed, and so that's why I want to go with this one first. All right, so soy and soy-based products have been linked to lower testosterone levels. That means if you eat these specific foods, it will lower your testosterone naturally over time. So these are foods like tofu and soy milk, soy isolates, soy proteins, edamame, etc. So here's one example. Study of 35 men found that drinking soy protein isolate for 54 days resulted in decreased testosterone levels. And I don't think that this is probably too shocking for most people. We know that soy can raise endogenous production of estrogen as well. So basically it takes an exogenous food, it can start to move it in the body with plant-based estrogens and even produce more of our own estrogen in our body. Now, while that doesn't have anything to do with lowering testosterone, your body can actually convert testosterone to estrogen. So what could be happening when taking in soy is actually the same amount of testosterone being produced, but that testosterone actually being converted to dihydrotestosterone, DHT, which is not free testosterone, or estrogen. Now, those are not typically things that many men want to experience. Lower testosterone, which is going to lead to lower libido, lower energy, lower drive, lower ambition, strength, muscle, endurance, any of those things. So this is for both men and women. It's not just men. And then with higher levels of estrogen for men, it can lead to more body fat gain, lower mood, depression, anxiety, water retention, breast tissue formation for men. So again, these are all things to just be aware of. You don't want super high testosterone levels in terms of it being natural or very low. You want to be balanced. So I'll give you a way during the show how to test your own testosterone in just a moment. So really important that if you, I mean, in general, when talking about soy, it can be beneficial to a degree for menopausal women and postmenopausal women. There's just no doubt about it. You just don't want to overdo it. That's really a couple servings a week of a sprouted organic non-GMO tofu can be really no issue. A little edamame, not an issue. I don't recommend soy isolates. I don't recommend soy proteins. I don't recommend soy milk. Those are processed soy. There's really nothing healthy about them whatsoever. And it's really not based on any health-based science that we've seen from any parts of the world consuming those types of foods. The populations that we know over in Asia eating a little bit more tofu, sprouted organic tofu, edamame, what else? Natto, a few other fermented type of soys, tempeh. Those are okay. Again, in smaller amounts, more beneficial though for, again, menopausal, postmenopausal women that could use a little bit boost in the natural soy isoflavones or plant-based estrogens, okay? So I've talked about soy before. I don't want to turn this into a soy podcast, but that is number one on our list. Number two is mint. This was new to me. Most of these I'd say, yep, all this makes sense. Check it off the list, I had never heard before that spearmint and peppermint of the mint family of plants can actually directly impact testosterone. So one study in 42 women showed that drinking spearmint herbal tea daily caused a significant decline in testosterone levels. So at least temporarily, if you're a woman dealing with PCOS-based symptoms, and let's just say you have higher levels of testosterone, you've already run your stress hormones mood and metabolism test, you could use a peppermint, spearmint, that's me trying to combine those two words at once, tea, or even some spearmint essential oil, which showed that in 20 days, this was a rat-based study, the spearmint essential oil also helped to reduce testosterone levels. Really interesting. So this is something that I might recommend for 8 weeks to 12 weeks for women with PCOS while you're trying to rebalance other hormones in your body, such as your insulin and your adrenals as well. Adrenals, thyroid, and insulin. All right. So really, really interesting one right there. Now, the next one is licorice root. This makes sense for multiple reasons. Let's get into it, though. A little bit of the science behind it. In a study, 25 men consumed 7 grams of licorice root daily, which caused a 26% drop in testosterone levels after just 1 week. Another small study showed that licorice may reduce testosterone levels in women as well, reporting that 3.5 grams of licorice daily decreased testosterone levels by 32% after just 1 menstrual cycle. Keep in mind that this applies to licorice root rather than licorice candy, which often doesn't contain any licorice root. All right, so I will say this, that's a lot of licorice, okay? So, if we're looking at a lot of the licorice that we're talking about milligrams, not necessarily grams. So this is quite significant. There is not a lot of products that's going to contain 7 grams of licorice root. So I just want you to keep this in mind. So this would be never anything I would really worry about. So like, for example, if I'm dealing with a viral-based issue, I use a product called Sinus Support, not just for congestion, but it's because it contains NAC at a high dose. It contains licorice root, thyme, a bunch of phenomenal products. So that's what I'll use. And I'll use that for a week to 2 weeks, maybe 3 maximum. I never use it for more than that. And that's going to have a certain licorice extract in that. That's going to be 100 milligrams. And I'm going to take that 3 times a day. So again, keep in mind, we're never going to be anywhere near the actual amount of licorice root that would take to decrease testosterone. And when you come off of it, it's not going to have an effect on testosterone either way. So it's a nice thing to look at that. I wanted to mention this because if you're purposely trying to lower testosterone, then you could do higher dose licorice root. But I would always be careful with that because if you really go higher on licorice root, it's not going to affect everyone. It's absolutely not going to affect everyone. You have to already be predisposed to it, but it can increase blood pressure. So you just want to note that as well. All right. But I wanted to add that in there. This one's not going to affect people too much because you're never going to use most likely a dosage this high. But just know that if you're looking to use it clinically to lower testosterone, that has been shown. All right. This is one that's really important. Nobody should be using these products. I keep trying to convince friends and family and many people still to this day. But marketing is strong. Remember, like the media and marketing is very powerful. And when they tell you, oh, use this plant-based butter instead, and it's not really butter, of course, it's just plant oils, it's vegetable oils. And you're like, oh, it's made from vegetables, it must be good for you. No, canola oil, soybean oils, corn oils, cottonseed oil, these are all inflammatory polyunsaturated fatty acids that are contained in a clear bottle that are exposed to light. They're exposed to oxygen. It's highly corrosive. It's highly oxidized. You put it in your body and especially you cook with it at a high heat. And basically you're just drinking down free radicals, and free radicals go into your body and they cause massive inflammation, massive damage, essentially rusting your body from the inside out. You don't want that. Okay. So vegetable oils are horrible for your brain and your body, your nervous system. They're not good for anything whatsoever. They are one of the most toxic ingredients in the world. I actually consider, and I've said this for many, many years, and a lot of other people now are finally kind of hopping on that train, is that they are worse than sugar. At least when you put sugar in your system, your body knows exactly what to do with it and how to get rid of it. Sure, it dysregulates your blood sugar. That's not ideal. Sure, it can definitely add body fat. That's not ideal either. However, it doesn't create massive free radical damage like vegetable oil that creates massive levels of inflammation that can also set off all sorts of dis-ease-based states. So, I mean, if you can eliminate only one thing, it would be all of these vegetable oils that people are cooking with. Instead, you can add a little bit of olive oil to your meal afterwards, or you can add some avocado oil, or better yet, have avocado with the meal. So much healthier for you. People are always asking, well, what can I cook with instead? Ideally, you're just sauteing your food in a pan with a little bit of water. You don't need to cook it in oil. You really don't. I mean, if you're putting some frozen veggies in there or some fresh veggies in there, they're not going to burn in the pan if you add a little bit of water. They're just not. And then you can add your oil afterwards so that it's not heated, so it doesn't become essentially corrosive and oxidized. If you really needed to, then you could use some coconut oil. You could use a little bit of grass-fed butter. You could use a little bit of grass-fed ghee. And all of those would be acceptable because they don't become oxidized at a medium, even medium to high heat. If you're to use olive oil, well, I've shared this before that, somehow generations before us knew it'd be handed down from generation to generation. They would do olive oil on a very low heat, and they would add garlic and lemon and rosemary to it, other antioxidants, which didn't allow then for the oxidation of that oil. However, olive oil is a monounsaturated fat and not a polyunsaturated fat. Polyunsaturated fats should never be heated, right? If you look at omega-3s, well, you want the one that's cold processed, right? If you are using a sesame oil, okay, you want one that's cold processed and you don't want to heat it. You want to add it afterwards if you choose to add it afterwards, all right? So that is that. And one study in 69 men showed that frequently consuming polyunsaturated fats was associated with significantly lower testosterone levels. Really important. Another study in 12 men looked at the effects of diet on testosterone levels after exercise and reported that polyunsaturated fat intake was linked to lower levels of testosterone. Keep in mind, these are not large studies. I always want to point that out, and I agree with that. These are not the big studies that I like to see, but these are just not, there's not a lot of money behind these studies, so they're not going to be able to, they're just not going to be able to run 1,000, 2,000 person studies. But all of these make sense, right? Inflammation, you create inflammation in your body, you're going to have lower levels of testosterone, right? You're 100%. Okay. So the next one that goes along with it is processed food, right? So now what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about chips and cookies and muffins and pastries, excuse me, and all these prepackaged snacks. So this is something that we want to look at specifically. So The processed foods, because the processed carbs is a big deal, there's no doubt about it. However, a lot of these also contain the vegetable oils as a trans fat. So this is super important. Yes, it leads to heart disease and high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes and all sorts of inflammation, but also it's been linked to lower testosterone. One study in 209 men showed that those who consumed the highest amounts of trans fat had 15% lower levels of testosterone than those in the lowest intake. They also found that a 37% lower sperm count and a decrease in testicular volume was linked to these processed foods too. So again, what are we talking about? Whole food diet, 7 to 9 servings of fruits and veggies every single day, predominantly vegetables. We're looking at good, clean proteins, vegan or paleo-based, good quality wild fish if you decide to have fish. That's what you want to look at, right? An anti-inflammatory nutrition plan. Yes, you can still enjoy a flex meal or cheat meal once a week. There's no doubt about it, maybe twice a week. But for the most part, you are keeping these processed foods out of your diet. All right, up next is alcohol. So I feel like I'm always the bearer of bad news when it comes to alcohol. I think it was like 2 Friday reviews. I spoke about alcohol and how it's really shown that previous recommendation of 1 glass of alcohol per day is actually good for your heart and it's not going to cause any detrimental harm. That's been really refuted and rebutted now many, many times. And they are showing that just 1 glass of alcohol per day actually increases your chances for cancer and other forms of dis-ease in the body. It affects the brain, it affects the body, it affects the nervous system, it affects your liver. All of it does add up over time. And this study showed that 2 to 3 drinks decreased testosterone levels in men by 6.8% over 3 weeks. Another study reported that acute alcohol intoxication was associated with increased testosterone in women, but decreased levels in men. This is something that we find with women with PCOS all the time. Higher levels of inflammation leading to higher levels of testosterone, that inflammation specifically coming from alcohol intake, and men being affected in the reverse, where it decreases their levels of drive, aggression, libido, etc. So important to look at this. Again, I see this play out in clinical in clinical work, so I can absolutely say that I see the same exact thing. Men who consume more alcohol have lower levels of testosterone. Women that consume especially red wine typically have higher levels of estrogen and sometimes higher levels of testosterone. So if you are dealing with any of those imbalances as a woman or a man, you will definitely want to look at your alcohol consumption. Again, 1 day a week, 1 or 2 drinks, I don't see it be a big factor. It can be for women with PCOS in the beginning, but after 8 weeks, 12 weeks of rebalancing, it's typically not as much of an issue. Okay, so let me give you one more and then I'll tell you how to test your testosterone levels at home if you would choose to. The last one is walnuts and almonds. This one for me was a little bit iffy. It's a little bit interesting. And I want to read it to you. It really just affects women though. So because nuts are obviously a great source of nutrients, right? They can be a great source of, well, they can even be a great source of protein, believe it or not, and of some healthy fats. And they're not oxidized if you don't get them roasted and all of that. So it could be a healthy source of selenium and magnesium and a lot of great nutrients. However, in a study of 31 women with PCOS, showed that walnuts and almonds increased levels of sex hormone binding globulin by 12.5% and 16% respectively. Sex hormone binding globulin is the type of protein that binds to testosterone, which can lead to a decrease in the levels of free testosterone in the body. So this is interesting. So basically what they were saying is that we don't know if this affects men or not. I've never seen it play out in my practice at all after running at least 10,000 of these hormone labs, that I haven't seen nuts really affect men's testosterone. You know, the walnuts, the almonds, etc. But in women, if women are dealing with higher levels of testosterone, well, they might want to eat more walnuts or almonds, at least in the short term, because it would bind up some of that free testosterone that might be causing the acne or facial hair growth or deepening of the voice or many other issues that come along with it, oily skin, increased aggression. So something interesting to look at. Again, I think we can use food as medicine. I really think that is something for us to look at. For the most part, if your body's healthy, it's going to be able to handle nuts, no problem at all. You're going to be able to consume a little bit of these foods every once in a while without causing a big issue. But I think that you can use these to your advantage. So if you're someone that's trying to boost your testosterone levels, stay away from these 7 base foods. And if you're someone that's looking to lower testosterone, well, certainly you might want to include more of these in your diet, at least in the short term, while rebalancing your body. The absolute best way to test your testosterone right at home is through what's called the Stress Hormones Mood and Metabolism Test by Equilife. You can find it by going to stephencabral.com/hormones-test. stephencabral.com/hormones-test. I will link that up at stephencabral.com/2076 if you'd like to head on over there today. And one of the reasons why I believe you don't want to run testosterone all by itself, at your doctor's office with just blood work, is that you want to see why testosterone is being affected negatively or positively. Meaning you want to look at your cortisol levels throughout the day, your DHEA, which is a precursor to testosterone. You also want to look at your estrogen levels because you might have normal testosterone, but high estrogen. That means a lot of your testosterone is converting to estrogen. We don't want that for men or women, right? Or you might have normal levels of estrogen, but low levels of progesterone. And that's affecting men and women as well, causing what we see as estrogen dominance. You could have higher levels of cortisol, which is lowering your thyroid, which is also maybe in women increasing your testosterone and in men decreasing your testosterone. So there's always a reason why. There honestly is. There's always an answer for what ails you. If I've learned anything over the past 25 years, is that we can always figure these things out. Just sometimes it just takes a little bit of at-home lab testing, a little bit of back and forth, but everything is, as they say, figure outable, and you will be able to do that. The thing about functional medicine lab testing is that the sooner you run those labs, the faster you figure it out because there's just no more guesswork. So you can always run your at-home functional medicine labs with your local naturopathic doctor. You can run those labs with an integrative health practitioner, or you can run it, of course, with my team, and I always leave that up to you. I just want you to know those options are available, and they all come typically with a consultation as well as a plan built for you. So again, that lab test, if you want to check it out, is stephencabral.com/hormones-test if you're interested in your own hormone levels. And hopefully today's podcast was helpful in terms of pointing you in the right direction for lowering testosterone or increasing testosterone based on these specific foods. All right. Take care, everyone. Please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve.